Hello to my water signs Cancer, Scorpio and Pisces. Welcome to the Virgo new moon. You'll find the timestamps for your rising signs listed below. Hello Cancer Rising, welcome to your reading for the Virgo new moon happening very soon, this Tuesday the 3rd of September at 11:56 a.m. if you're in the Southern Hemisphere with me. What I want you to do on Tuesday is carve out some time for yourself, Cancer Rising, and have a think about your identity in the way that you consider your functionality in a group. The last full moon that I missed out on recording readings for was quite a pivotal one, and the majority of the month of August felt that we really had to take everything really slow and just go into it together, and sometimes separately. August felt that there was room enough, all things considered, for us to keep our heads down and sort of get the job done. And it culminated in a very brittle, very austere full moon that was triggering your contracts in this life, who you felt beholden to, the way that your output has been offered to other people, and also your sense of autonomy financially, and also your sense of belonging in the community. There was fights, perhaps internally, that occurred during August, where you felt that you knew what you had to do and you had to keep your head down and you had to keep on moving, even though somewhere in there the voices were rising to revolt, to rebel, to throw it all in the bin and to run away to the hills. You didn't do that. I'm really proud of you. Perhaps you were really tempted to, and I'm proud of you for how you dealt with that. At this time, when the sun and the moon are at the same place in Virgo, we're thinking about seed sowing again. We're thinking about going back to the drawing board. And for you on your birth chart, Cancer Rising, I want you to think about your house of the goddess. I want you to think about your village, your local environment. I want to think about your language. What language do you have in regard to goddess worship? Because it feels really powerful at this time that we all reinstill something that looks and sounds like goddess worship into our daily lives. Gratitude can sometimes be really hard to come by. When it is, we go and sit with the goddess. Hope can sometimes feel really hard to come by. When it is, we go and sit with the goddess too. At 11 degrees of Virgo, the sun and the moon will come in to get the same place, and so we won't see the moon in the sky, but we know as moon babies that we get to work with whatever's left here on planet Earth. And in the tarot, 11 degrees of Virgo speaks to the 9 of Pentacles. This is someone who is taking a moment to feel the sun on their skin and to feel the gratitude in their heart. They're looking around at a garden that has taken years and years and years to cultivate, and finally things are growing, things are starting to bloom, things are starting to feel fertile and regenerative once more after a really long time of patience and grit and determination and hard work. Moving into next year, the dragon is going to be forcing eclipses to happen with this card, and also urging you to go out and to seek what it is that you're looking for. It's natural for you, Cancer Rising, to live for the well-being of other people and to have your identity so interwoven and wrapped up in their betterment of others' happiness. Duty is a really strong word that Cancer Risings often feel bound to. But things are changing. The day before this new moon, hopefully on the day that I'm publishing these, the Lord of the Underworld, Pluto, is going to be re-entering into Capricorn for 2.5 months, the final swan song of this Plutonian experience in terms of pre-existing power structures and the way that we relate to them. On your birth chart, Cancer rising, Capricorn represents the 7th house, which is our relationships to our family, our friends, and to people that we hold intimacy with, people that we hold dear. And so this revolution, this yearning desire from Uranus in your 11th house of community and your humanity, and this disintegration of pre-existing structures in your relationships, both feel like they're speaking to something of urgency for you to step up and to step out into the world as the person that you are becoming, rather than the duty that you felt bound by from before. It's a nice moment, Cancer rising, and it deserves the tenderness that we can give it. Your rebel has just stationed retrograde. So Uranus stations retrograde every year, but when it happens, we talk about it. And it just so happens that that's happening at the same time as this Plutonian energy re-enters into your relationships. And this isn't to say that everything's going to change and to fall away again. What it is saying is that you have some wisdom here. This part of your life has been ripe with lessons from this underworld feeling, from this destruction and restructuring of relationships, the way that you operate in them and the behaviors that you expect from people that you love. In this quiet clearing after the hectic mania of Mercury retrograde and that Aquarius full moon, I want you to get your pen out. And I want you to write the title Goddess, and I want you to start to list all of the different ways that you enact goddess worship in your personal life. What I love about that definition of the 3rd house, it goes back to the Hellenistic tradition from way back when. The 3rd house was called the house of the goddess, and the 9th house, the house of the gods. So this is the current quality of time that we're stepping into for you, Cancer rising. The moon's really, really comfortable and fertile and helpful in the house of the goddess. So this seed feels really substantial. And as much as the eclipses in your house of the gods and the goddess will play out next year, there's something that I feel if we bury it deep enough, and if we make sure that the soil is healthy, there will be growth that you get to appreciate too. Thinking about what urgency you might be feeling to move, to travel, to change things up. There might be some grand adventures that just have to happen next year that change the dynamic in your sense of belonging in a group and also in your personal relationships too. But there might be something that you just know that you need to do moving forward. I hope that that's the case, and I hope that this current moment of time feels like a relief amidst the confusion and the misinformation and the refusal to apologize that Mercury retrograde has just put us all through. Now the clarity has come. The real information or the real intelligence has arrived again, and Mercury will soon make its way back into Virgo, back into the house of the goddess, where it does so well. Mercury does great things in Virgo. Mercury is the reason why Virgo is meticulous in their nature and follows the recipe, follows the rule book in order for best results. So let's take a leaf out of Virgo's book, Cancer rising, and do the same thing. I want growth for you in this next trip around the wheel, as exhausting and wrung out and spent and done as you might feel. Please know that Pluto always reminds us that there is the undergrowth that green, juicy, vibrant new life always comes after a scorched, burnt out clearing, a necessary clearing. The full moon in Aquarius was really highlighting what unspoken contracts you have signed and which ones are complete and over now. So move with that knowledge. The highlight on your financial autonomy is right, yes, that happened. But what parts of you need a bit of a birthday in terms of your function and your duty in the world around you? Not all of life is function and duty. A lot of it is, and we must show up and refocus. We must finesse our relationship styles. Part of this life is for you alone to experience and to enjoy. Perhaps everything that you've been learning in your daily rhythm, your private rituals, perhaps things that have held you in mental good health, little rhythms, little cycles that you go through. It might be time to start sharing some of that information around too as we step into the next year. The first eclipse in Pisces will occur after this new moon, so the next full moon will be partially eclipsed in Pisces, and so we'll develop a taste. We might see what topics, what themes might be showing up for us next year. Eclipses are always unstable and always unpredictable, so there's time for that. This time with this moon is really constructive. And if you remember that image of the Nine of Pentacles, perhaps that can be something that you can aspire to. Put the Nine of Pentacles on your mood board if that's something that you do as well, your Pinterest. It's like, this will come for me. A lot of people are weighing up their output, their energetic output, and their results, the results of their hard labor. And it's always good to do that, because when we do that, we can reassess where our limited energy is best invested. And there has to be some investment for your sense of self and your internal rituals, your internal goddess worship, as it were. What is the next phase for you, Cancer Rising? Can't wait to hear all about it. Another thing to make mention, just in terms of friction and of possible confusion, is that Mercury will make a square, so pressure point again with Uranus, the rebel. So we're speaking to, in this configuration, your financial autonomy and your responsibilities to the community. And so there may have been some moments where you were like, oh, this is the reality. Okay, so what is my new financial framework? How are my resources being reconfigured now? And so the first square happened on the 22nd of July, and then there was another one on the 18th of August because Mercury was doing this. So there'll be a final square again, but then Mercury will move into Virgo soon enough on the 9th of September, where there'll be some real strategies to be able to put in place in regard to quite literally where you live, in regard to what languages you're learning and have discovered that aid and soothe you. You, not them so much. Because this is the part of the year, this is the part of the astrology, part of the zodiac that's calling for some self-care for you, Cancer Rising, some really deep work. So let's take the offer as best we can. And after any exertion of will, when you're around in relationships with people that have required a lot of tending to, a lot of company, a lot of soothing, a lot of healing, the healer can sometimes feel that their resources become limited because so much energy has been put forward to maintain and to care. The Queen of Cups is really adept at that, and the Queen of Cups also has developed her own strategies to make sure that her cup is never empty. But it feels to me that perhaps there has been, in that conviction and commitment that you have, Cancer Rising, to nurture, there has been some either lamentation or memories gone by of when that wasn't provided for you, or in this current moment you feel that you're not being cared for. So that full moon in Aquarius was really encouraging room to grieve. Those invisible contracts that we sign in this life with people can be so difficult to complete. But some of them have completed for you, Cancer Rising. And what you've got to look forward to as you move ahead is that magical feeling back. All water and we drown, right? Moving water is healthy. Learning to swim is really healthy when it comes to the water element. But only water and we become waterlogged. We become heavy. And that's when we call upon the element of fire to come back to us. And we remember our passions, we remember our creativity, and we remember our magic too. Looking ahead, what you're reconciling and what you're becoming ready to leave behind is going to leave room for more of this, for a reinvigoration of your spirit in some way. So I want you to feel excited for it. You can feel trepidatious too, and the Five of Cups always says, grieve when you need to. But don't sit there forever. Life goes on. Things change, always. It's the one thing that we can rely on. And so I want the change for you to feel invigorating and magical. Plant the seed with the goddess at this new moon, and let's spend the next 12 months thinking about what might grow from that. A change is as good as a holiday. Great big love to you, Cancer Rising. If you're still here with me, please put a gold medal in the comments. You're a champion, as we all are. If you'd like to support my work, you can head to buymeacoffee.com/umaruby and put some money in the tip jar, or you can subscribe for 10 Australian dollars a month. If you feel encouraged for me to draw your birth chart and to read it to you, head to umaruby.com and make an appointment with me. Book the spirit reading if I've not met you before. I'll be with you soon enough to talk about the partial lunar eclipse in Pisces coming up. We can prepare as best we can for that. But until we speak again, thank you very much for your company, Cancer Rising. I love you very much. Hello, Scorpio Rising. Welcome to your reading for the Virgo new moon, happening really soon on Tuesday the 3rd of September at 11:56 a.m. if you're in the Southern Hemisphere with me. So it'll be lunchtime on Tuesday that hopefully you'll be able to steal away, or maybe you can remember for after work. But really take some time to think about your humanitarian spirit, Scorpio Rising. Think about your sense of belonging in friendship, in kinship, in the group, and think about a bit of good luck too. Think about what can be achieved when people like minds come together. Think about who you haven't met yet or who you might be searching for. There's been quite a few people that I've talked to that have this sort of gently burning yearning to meet up with folks that understand them. And at a new moon, when the sun and the moon are at the same place and we don't have a moon in the sky, when we work with the residual energy that's left on the planet, we get to sow something of a seed. So if there's been hoping and wishing and dreaming for you as far as your belonging in a group, as far as your friendship circles are concerned, use this new moon to get specific. I think that of all of the signs, Virgo loves to be really specific. So, yeah, you're not alone too, Scorpio Rising. That's one thing to maybe just throw in there straight away. There's a lot of folks that are really looking forward to finding a clearing or finding a community in some capacity. There's a lot of folks right now that have really been relying on the strength of their community to see them through troubled times. And sometimes when you feel a bit out of step or out of the loop, or when you feel that the plates are shifting in pre-existing communities, it can be a bit lonely. You're never alone if you're in company with Mother Nature. That's one thing that I want you to remember as well, Scorpio Rising. I say that because I'm looking at the Nine of Pentacles right here. So 11 degrees of the sign Virgo in the zodiac speaks directly to the Nine of Pentacles. So I have this here because it's a beautiful visual reminder of what we can do with a new moon. We can plant it, and we can tend to it, and we can wait for future growth. This is someone that has really stuck to the long game. They're really taking a moment to feel the sun on their skin and look at their garden and relish in the wealth of what they've created. So I want this for you. There's also something kind of solitary and autonomous about this card, wouldn't you say? The relationship that we have with ourself is vital. No amount of company or people around you really tends to help if you're out of step with who it is that you are at your core. There may have been some kind of trickier spots in terms of your confidence, your bravery, perhaps your forgive me, perhaps your insecurities, gently, in Scorpio territory. Perhaps that vulnerability expressed itself in anger over the last month or so. If it did, that's all right. You're entitled to your rage, but it's how we work with it and what we do with it and what reparations we make after the fact that really make the difference. You're a human being, and so you have these emotions, Scorpio Rising. It's perfectly fine. You're not a bad person for feeling anger or feeling frustration or speaking out. But if you know in your heart of hearts that it was out of line, then you need to make room to wholeheartedly, truthfully apologize and to recommit to the stability of the relationship too. No one wants to be apologized to forever after outburst after outburst after outburst. It gets a bit tired. Have a think about it. That may not have been what you went through with Mars and Jupiter and all of the sparring, squaring off with Saturn. That may have not happened for you so personally, but it may have been something that you looked and felt from folks around you. You don't have to tell me if it was you personally. That's all right. I believe that you're a good person, Scorpio Rising, and I believe that you've got Mars as your guiding light to work with for the rest of the time that you're here. And so you're going to finesse that red hot fire from the planet Mars into something that looks like bravery and valor and confidence, less like aggression and violence and anger. Don't know why I said any of that. Let's have a look at the other astrology. So this seed that we're going to sow in terms of our belonging in the group, that happens on the 3rd of September. But I think the day that I release these, hopefully if my schedule is stuck to, there's a couple of things that are occurring. So Uranus, the rebel, the rebellious spirit in all of us, stations retrograde. Happens every year, but it just so happens that this time it's stationing retrograde on the same day that Pluto, the harbinger of disintegration, destruction, and potential rebirth, moves back into Capricorn. And this is worth talking about because the words like revolution, words like revolt, words like rebellion are permeating the current moment, the current culture, as are revelations, abuses of power, pre-existing power structures being toppled. These are all really, we're working with this reality. And I think depending on what side of the fence you sit on, I think everyone has a lot of rage, which is back to this Mars right now. If Pluto can teach us anything, is that there's room for new growth after destruction. And that can be a really sobering fact, and it can sit uncomfortably depending on where you're at. Astrologically, the presence of Pluto in Capricorn will exist from the 2nd of September until the 20th of November. So it's only a few months, but this is the last moment that Pluto will be on that 29th degree point of Capricorn in our lifetimes. Because Pluto takes such a long time to go around the zodiac, this is kind of the moment. These next few months are our opportunity to learn about the structure of power, to learn about our part to play in those structures, to learn about our privilege, and to learn about who's paying the tax for our privilege too. We'll see what happens, and I don't wish to get political in this. We'll stick to the astrology. But it will be very interesting to see what we've got to work with after November into 2025. We'll get to see that if we can take the tension from all of this stark polarity. The next two eclipses happen in Pisces and then one in Libra. So the solar eclipse in Libra will be casting our eye back to that justice card, that justice in reverse perhaps, an eclipse of justice. Or perhaps we'll be reckoning with the story that began when these eclipses first occurred. I want great things for you, Scorpio Rising, and I can really see that this community that you've been longing for, or perhaps you've been awakening yourself to, is going to receive you with open arms. I hope that there is no limitation on the love that you are offered. I hope that it inspires you to roll up your sleeves and get to work too. We all want to feel helpful to our community in some way, don't we? Now, because the eclipses are shifting into Pisces and in Virgo, when it comes to things like your humanity, your sense of belonging in the group, the dragon's tail over the next 12, 18 months will be encouraging or enforcing a peeling of layers, some kind of shedding, some kind of vice grip needs to be released in order for the truth of the matter or the next incarnation to cohere. Now, you know about the dragon's tail, the eclipses from 2022, end of 2021 to 2022. They were all about that for you in your sense of self. Maybe there's something that you can help your community with in terms of that understanding, the humility that it takes to let go of old personas or old control. Perhaps you can help your community with their own metamorphosis as you can see it sort of occurring, perhaps in the rolling of the tide of these friendship circles or community community groups or whatever it is that is sort of you're thinking about right now. Perhaps your great example of humility when the eclipses were occurring in your first house, you'll be able to share that with the group over the next years. It's a powerful moment that we're living through, and sometimes it can be really exhausting. But a very, very wise, intelligent, beautiful writer of an astrologer called Alice Sparklycat said in a post very recently that astrology isn't a diagnosis, full stop. So I never want you to feel in peril, or I never want you to feel frightened of the upcoming astrology coming from my examination of it. In fact, it's my conviction to make sure that we find the hope in whatever we come up against. Yes, August was really difficult. It was really, really brittle. And there was a lot that was revealed in the public forum that a minority has been dealing with for years. And it's entered into the public consciousness like never before. Hopefully from here, we can accept apologies from those that have humbled themselves to the truth. And we can also make strategies and make provisions for the vulnerable among us to feel supported as they are, as who they are. People's vulnerability is so obvious to so many of us water signs right now. Sometimes, Scorpio, you have that frozen layer because it feels like too much. And maybe that's sometimes when Mars starts to rear its uglier side. But Mars in its bright and its light is bravery. It's brave to tell people how you feel and to tell yourself to honor your emotions. Let's get some tarot. What else can I say? Okay, so on the topic of your community groups, friendships, humanitarian spirit, whatever info that arrived for you Friday the 26th of July, so the 26th of July this year, whatever was coming to light for you, but then you had to take a step back because it got really confusing. It might be coming back to that point again. There might be some clarity because Mercury, the planet that rules Virgo, is coming back into Virgo. They were retrograde for most of August. So that confusion, that inability to handle the truth has its clearing. So maybe it was an offer, maybe it was a realization about a certain sort of toxic power dynamic or your own toxic behavior. Who knows? Didn't have anything to do with toxicity. Maybe it just had to do with practicality, like trying to find the, how do we get this thing moving? Maybe that's what it was. Well, maybe it will come to you. I got the Lovers card. So, In astrology, when we see the Lovers card just there, really does speak to the sign Gemini. It speaks to that beautiful opportunity to mirror each other to each other. You're searching for a lover, you're searching for love and understanding. You want to see through the eyes of someone into their soul, into their heart. On your birth chart, Scorpio Rising, Gemini is the 8th house, which is the house of contracts and the house of deep, sincere, heartfelt grief. And so, just in conjunction with these other cards here, and thinking about the co-presence of Jupiter, the expansive, sometimes irresponsible one in Gemini, and Mars also in Gemini too. If Jupiter was egging on that anger and it was in relationship to those that you're in close bonds with, or it was in relationship to the sordid topic of coin in terms of inheritance or financial exchange, financial investment with one another, if there was conversations that occurred, or if there was concern that you had maybe about the way that these topics were being operated, but that concern couldn't be expressed and it turned into rage. That's okay. There's always room for repair in this life, isn't there? What we're kind of looking at here, though, is with this 7 of Cups present, with these cards, more and more and more of us are becoming really savvy and articulate to the bad habits and the toxic behavior of ourselves and that we see in those around us. And sometimes when you feel or you find yourself in a scenario where you're like, yep, this is for life, but the provisos become really obvious to you, the habits become really obvious, or the limitations or the bad behavior becomes obvious to you. And at first you can sort of ignore it, but then after a while it becomes like water torture. What I want for everyone is the ability to name bad behavior in others and in themselves, as Gemini wants us to do, and to find the appropriate strategies to make reparations for that bad behavior, or the appropriate boundaries, the appropriate barriers to not have that kind of behavior infiltrate our happiness again. And it's difficult when thinking about your friends and thinking about groups like that. When the mean girls turn their back, ooh, there's nothing colder. And it can have folks lash out too, because you're like, I thought that this was for life. But if we're going to name and shame the behavior of other people in our periphery, we must first of all take that Gemini mirror and look directly back into ourselves and think about all of the bad behavior or bad coping mechanisms, bad habits that we have engaged in too. There's always room for repair, there's always room to apologize, but apologies can't be peripheral, ever flowing. What word am I looking for? You can't just apologize forever and continually enact the same poor behavior. Things need to change, and people, the only way that trust is earned is by proof that those behaviors are in process of changing. So I hope that's all right, Scorpio Rising. I wonder how I might have to review this one. I don't know. I actually don't have time, but we'll see. Let me know how that lands for you. If you are still here with me, put a gold medal in the comments below for the champions that walk among us. If you would like me to read your birth chart, head to umaruby.com. I'll draw you one. They look like this. You can make your appointment at my website. And if I've not met you before, pick the spirit reading. If you'd like to support my work financially, do head over to buymeacoffee.com/umaruby, and you can subscribe for 10 Australian dollars a month, or you can just put some money in the tip jar, whatever works for you. Thank you so much for your company and for being here with me, Scorpio. I'm going to be with you in plenty of time to discuss the upcoming lunation after this Virgo new moon, which is a partial lunar eclipse in Pisces. And so in terms of your expressiveness and your creativity and your access to pleasure and to fun, your artistry, there might be some moments that we have to prepare for, if we can, that come out of the blue. We won't be working with this moon, but we'll be reflecting and regrouping after the fact. So again, thank you. I love you. Take care. Hello, Pisces Rising. Welcome to your reading for the Virgo new moon happening very soon, this Tuesday, the 3rd of September at 11:56 a.m. if you're in the Southern Hemisphere with me. So lunchtime on Tuesday, we're going to take a couple of moments to ourselves and we're going to write down on a piece of paper what we hope to have happen in our relationships. How do we want those relationships to grow? What are we sowing at this time? What are we planting in order to reap the results moving forward? Thank you very much for being here with me, Pisces Rising. I know that I missed the last lunation again. I know that my instability has been really obvious over the last months, what with illnesses and other things going on. But at this time, there's something that I'm doing in my own way to recommit to my relationships, to recommit to the folks that I adore and the folks that I work with as well. Looking at the tarot, I have the 9 of Pentacles here on the table, so I just want to show you this because it may help for us to imagine. This person right here in this card is taking a moment. They're feeling the sun on their skin and they're looking around at their garden and they're relishing in everything that they've committed to the growth of, everything that they have gotten dirty for, everything that they've patiently waited for. The sun and the moon at 11 degrees of Virgo hit that card. And so that's in our mind's eye, what we might like to keep with us or keep in our back pocket as we make our intentions and our wishes and cast our spells. Now, all is okay at this time. The rabid miscommunication and brittleness and conflict that was quite palpable in most of August. I think miscommunication might be the word for it. There were lots of things or lots of information, misinformation, misunderstandings that arrived in our personal lives and also quite abruptly on the world stage. There was also a refusal in some capacities to admit error, and this we're rapidly getting sick of. I think that that's something that, from my perspective, I can really feel a lot of folks getting really tired of the bending of truth or the refusal to admit when one is wrong. And this may be showing up for you personally. This may be showing up for you in your relationships, or it may be just a feeling that you have in the world around you. For me, it was all three. And so when I think about this new moon, this seed, this black night, I'm going to really use it very, very wisely. I'm going to make a list of the people that I adore, and I'm going to make a list of all the different ways in which I can contribute to their lives moving forward. How can I be a better friend, a better family member, perhaps a better lover in time to come? How can I be a better reader? How can I be a better astrologer? How can I be a better tarot reader? All of these things I'm going to really commit to, and I'm going to then put that writing in a drawer and prepare for the eclipses that are on the way. The dragon's moving, coming right for us, Pisces rising, moving away from Aries, really that examination, that investigation into how we are capable to feather our nest and how we have a good or a challenging relationship with finance. And that dragon is moving directly into Pisces, into the first house, the house of the soul's rising intention, your core, your eastern horizon. So that's coming. But we've been through so much already, haven't we, Pisces rising? And as well as this moment, as well as the dragon moving into the first and seventh house, we're also, for the next couple of months, reviewing the last dance of Pluto in Capricorn. On your birth chart, Pisces rising, that's the 11th house. That's your sense of kinship and your humanitarian principles. Your humanitarian spirit exists in the 11th house. When you look out, zoom out to the greater good, what do you see? Now, Pluto, being the lord of the underworld, has smashed, disintegrated, rearranged a lot of those topics over a very long period of time. When thinking globally, Capricorn is the sign that can represent pre-existing power structures or power dynamics. And so we can definitely see where that revelation or that revealing of mislaid power or abuses of power have been showing up for us in the popular culture. A lot more people have greater language for either what they've been through personally at the hands of someone in a position of power, or what they can see in the world around them. Perhaps they've been reckoning with their own position of power and what that represents to them and the world around them, and perhaps how abuses of that power have showed up too. Astrology and one another, we're all a mirror for each other. Everything is reflected. And so Pluto in Capricorn from September 2nd, hopefully the day that I'm publishing this, up until the 20th of November will be the final review of our generation's dance with Pluto in Capricorn. It'll never happen again in our lifetime. In fact, it won't happen again for another 248 years. So let's use the next couple of months with a clear heart, a clear head, and really open eyes for those that are suffering and those that need our assistance, and for us to vouch for them. And let's think about those that we need to apologize to, privately, spiritually, or perhaps face to face. It's a big time. August was difficult enough. August was very tense, very brittle. Moving forward for the rest of this year, I hope that there's something that feels like a strength, and I hope there's something that feels humbling in some way. Virgo being the 7th house, being the house that fills up your relationships, I want you to find some moments in there, Pisces rising, for gratitude. And I also would encourage you to do as I will and make a list of everybody that is intimate in your life, what you're grateful for, and how you can contribute to the health of that relationship as we move along. Now, on the same day that Pluto moves back into Capricorn, we have Uranus, the rebel heart, stationing retrograde. This happens every year, but it just so happens that these two things are happening on the same day. So it does feel like we're sort of stealing ourselves. On your birth chart, Taurus is the 3rd house, the house of the goddess, the house of your ritual spirit, the house of your language, how you share what you know with other people in terms of healing and in terms of magical practice, in terms of locality, privacy. And so this retrograde kind of feels to me like a review of what has been really working for you in those topics, in your neighborhood, in the world around you, and what you've been chomping at the bit to rearrange completely. Uranus was involved in that tension, that brittle square between the last full moon. The sun, the moon, and Uranus were all exactly poofed, fighting against each other. On your birth chart, that would have been a push and a pull between your unconscious reality and your very real, very conscious reality. So I know the feeling, and I've done it many times in my life, Pisces Rising, of getting my matchbook, burning it all to the ground and starting again, shouting, "Fuck you, you don't love me," flipping the table and getting out of there. It's exhausting after a while. And this isn't to accept bad behavior. It's to find language for the way that you expect to be treated. It's to find language for the ways that you endeavor to treat others. For those of us born in the 80s, there was something really sort of tenderizing about that last moon and the square that took shape in terms of your unconscious wounding, in terms of your Chiron placement. There's a lot of triggers that were revealed, a lot of coping mechanisms perhaps revealed at that last full moon. And yes, the way that people have behaved in the past does take its toll. It has its effect on us, just as our behavior has an effect on others. And so this is the shape that we're preparing to be eclipsed over the next 18 months or so. In fact, next lunation is a partial eclipse in Pisces. Myself, my beloveds, what dynamics do I need to release over this next bit of time? And what behaviors do I need to examine over the next bit of time too? We don't all get it right exactly all of the time, but this is what astrology helps us, it aids us to do, is to consistently review our behavior, our love language, and our relationships. We don't do it to try and avoid further pain. We do it because that's the human right thing to do. If we can admit when we were wrong and apologize for our bad behavior, then we can grow to expect that awareness from our relationships, because that's the basis on which these relationships can grow. Back to this. So let's do it together, Pisces Rising, in this beautiful, dark, moonless sky. Let's say to ourselves, I'm going to be a great lover. I'm going to be a great friend. I'm going to be a great child to my caregivers. I'm going to show up as best I can and with consistency. Because if Saturn has been teaching me anything, it's consistency. That boundary, that container. There's been a couple of attempts to smash it open. Unfortunately, not at this juncture. So let's work with what we've got, and let's keep our hearts and our ears and our minds open to feedback from those that we love as well. Because great things happen in the power of threes. Great things happen when you work together, right? The moment that one person starts to express their vulnerability or their grief or their sadness, their troubles, that provides room and space for the other to express those things too. And, everyone's so frightened of a pity party, but the other way is really cold and really caustic, if you don't tell anybody how you've honestly been feeling or what you're looking at and what you're attempting to reconcile, then you're the only person that can carry that load. And it doesn't have to be everybody. But what I see here for your Pisces rising is that the select few, and in fact, these two cards are really emulating a beautiful moment that I had with one of my best friends over the difficulty of August, the last month. There was some real room for honesty. And in the way that I had been registering perhaps my own habitual coping mechanisms, or my own outlook on the world, or my own outlook on myself, to air out those grievances and to speak with someone that you trust and that has your best interests at heart too, and not to placate, not to sort of, we really heard each other and we really registered what we put down in front of one another. And I believe moving forward, we're going to hold each other with firm arms and support moving forward to make the changes that need to be made. And if we can continue to do that, then there'll be no stopping it. The next year, 2 years, they feel fraught astrologically. They also feel incredibly magical. And I think for a lot of the water signs, got to remember that a bit of fire is good from time to time. Chiron in Aries right now has been showing us where our bruises are in terms of our courage and our sense of self-worth. But once we have acknowledged those bruises, we remember that the fire is ours as well. We can have some. So I want magic for you, as well as this sobering, clarifying conversation too. Mercury was retrograde for most of August, and it was really confusing, and there was probably some things in some relationships for you that felt really hard or confused. But moving from that and understanding that Mercury has now stationed direct since the 28th of August and will be leaving Leo again and moving back into your house of relationships, perhaps there's some things on the tip of your tongue that you weren't able to say, but now have the words for. If you've got the words for it, Pisces rising, use them. It's another great friend of mine always says, use your words, Kim. Much love to you, Pisces rising. Thank you very much for being here with me. If you are, in honor of the triumph of will and the truth, put a gold medal in the comments. That'd be awesome. If you'd like to support my work, please head to buymeacoffee.com/umaruby. You can subscribe for 10 Australian dollars a month or put some money in the tip jar. It's always very much appreciated. If you'd like me to draw your birth chart and read it to you, you can head to umaruby.com. That's my website, and you can pick a spirit reading, and I'll read your birth chart using the tarot and using what it is that I know so far. If you'd like a face-to-face tarot reading with me too, pop on by to Muses of Mystery in the Nicholas Building in Melbourne town. I'll be there on Sundays for the next few months. Much love to you, Pisces. Thanks for your company. Thanks for your patience. Thank you for your belief. And I'll be with you with plenty of time this time. I'm going to reassess my schedule, but I want to really get stuck into this partial eclipse in Pisces coming up next lunation. So let's prepare for that together as best we can. Take good care. Love.